Aloha, my name is Lee Ngol. Welcome to the 40th Annual Hawaii International Film Festival presented by Halekulani and our discussion with Dong Run Yin, director of Gone with the Light. We would like to extend our thanks to all of our sponsors for supporting this program and this film festival. Just some quick housekeeping bits for up-to-date information on additions to the program and for the full schedule of films, events, HIFF Talk story sessions, and Q&As, please visit our website at www.hiff.org. To also participate in the Hawaii News Now Audience Award for voting, please head to hawaiinewsnow.com/HIFF to cast your vote for your favorite narrative film, documentary, and short film as well. A big mahalo to the Hawaii News Now network for their support of all of this. All right, so we have Dong Run Yen and also translator Robert Wei here as well. Are you both ready to begin?
Yes.
Yes, I'm ready.
Fantastic. First I want to say tremendous film. Really did enjoy watching it myself. And I've seen a lot of films and projects that have a similar premise to Gone with the Light. I found that this film aimed to explore, if not even, I dare use the word interrogate, the integrity of relationships that we have with one another. So for you, what inspired you to tell this story and in this particular manner?
Well, first I will say aloha to the audience of Hawaii Movie Festival, and then I will use Chinese to explain my thoughts because my vocabulary is not so big. About the inspiration, 我是在2014年开始有这个想象的。人们经常说相爱的人之间有化学反应，所以我就想，也许爱人之间有某种连接，比如磁场或者其他别的什么，这是有巨大能量的。如果有一种更高维度的这种外星人能使用这种能量，他们就会把相爱的人抓走，一阵一阵当成电池来用。魏可，你可以先翻译这部分。
Okay, the director says, I started to have this image in my head since 2014, since, there's a saying that people in love, have a certain chemical reactions between their relationships. So I had this idea that maybe there's some kind of a connection, like a magnetic connection between lovers that possesses a huge amount of energy. And if someday an alien came to Earth from a different dimension and they can make use of this energy, then they can just capture the lovers and try to use them as pairs of batteries.
然后我又在想，这个外星人是什么样子呢？在这个片子里，然后开始想到是可能天空中会出现一个巨大的飞船，悬浮在这个地球的轨道上，可能看起来比月球还大。我们能用望远镜看到飞船里被抓走的那些相爱的人。然后在这样的这种想法下，我就发现，其实我对被抓走的人和外星人并没有那么大兴趣，而是我对剩下的人的状况更感兴趣，他们如何面对自己。然后后来在我妻子的这个建议下，我又把飞船改成了更有象征意义，其实可以说是更有宗教意义的一道光。
So while I visualize what the aliens may look like, initially I'm thinking about the huge spaceship, floating in the space, and and then we can look at the aliens. And then also look at the people they snatched away from us. But that image didn't really stick with me for very long because very soon my creative energy shifted to the people left on Earth, which I found is more interesting. How do they deal with the situation? How do they face themselves? So upon advice from my wife, I turned this image of the spaceship into something more symbolic, or if I may say, more religious, which is a light.
Well, part of me is a little heartbroken because I'm a big sci-fi fan and I love stories about aliens. But at the same time, I think there was a very beautiful choice in the way that you wanted to tell this story. I'll allow for translation for that, and then I'll move on to my next question.
Thank you.
若年他说
That's the answer. Yeah.
That's
Okay,
good.
sure. I guess there's some certain things that are universal.
Oh,
Convention.
I can understand. I can understand what you're talking about.
Oh, wonderful. Okay,
Yeah.
and just
Yeah, I can
for the
understand
record,
what
my
you're talking
Mandarin
about.
is
Yeah.
pretty terrible. It's not impossible, but mostly terrible. But now that we're on this subject, I want to talk about the stories that you are focusing on this film. In particular, I found generally four or maybe three and a half protagonists that are followed throughout the film, especially the character of the teacher, the divorcee, the criminal thug like character, and to an extent the young woman who was in this sort of young romance, right? Whether it's from the conversations you
Mhm.
had or your creative energy, what were the reasons why you wanted to focus on these particular stories?
其实在这个剧本在刚开始创作的时候，我们有更多的人物，其实甚至还有比如老年的人和这个其他的一些人。然后我其实在一直用不同的这些人在做一种思想实验，然后最终是为了让这个故事更简单、更集中一点，然后这4组人物被留下来了。刚开始决定留下他们的故事的时候，其实是跟着感觉走的。但是在修改剧本过程中，我意识到，其实这4组人物是在我内心中代表了人在爱情中的4种不同的状态。一个是热恋中并且相信爱情的，这就是这对年轻情侣。然后呢，有的是觉得自己已经失去爱情的，是那个离婚的那个女人。有的是爱情已经平淡了，但是本来是平静的、结实一点的，就是这个老师，然后和不敢承认自己真实的感情的这个小混混。魏可可以先翻译一下这部分。
Okay. I actually started with a lot more characters and did a lot of kind of experiment in my head on how they would play out. Like, there were elders in my initial ideas, but eventually those 4 main characters remained. And the reason to keep them in the story took place in a process of rewriting when I realized that these 4 main characters probably represents 4 different states of people in love. There are people who is in a crazy, madly in love, and they truly believe love, like the star-crossed young couple. And then there are people who think they are beyond love already, like the divorcee, or like there are characters who found life is very bland and love doesn't stir anything in their emotions anymore, like the teacher. And there are people who is afraid to really face their true emotions, like the thug.
这些人物其实在创作中，很有趣的是，他们也是在变化的。小混混那条故事线里边，其实原本的主角并不是他，而是那个就是我们可以认为他杀人了的那个主持人。但是在写作的过程中，我发现不敢承认自己这个同性爱情倾向的这个小混混在不停的在向我招手，告诉我他才是这个故事的主心骨，所以最后我就把他变成了那一条线的主角。
And actually, these characters changed in the course of my creation, of my writing. For example, the Pity Thug storyline. That story, I wasn't really focusing on him at first. I was focusing on the targets that he was trying to investigate, he was going after. But, in the writing process, I sort of feels like this guy becomes more interesting to me because he is someone who is trying to shy away from how he really feels about love, but he doesn't have the nerve, he doesn't have the courage to face himself. And he then becomes the main character of this storyline for me.
Okay, that's the answer of this question.
Wow. That's really profound. And I mean, it makes you just curious about what was excluded or what could have been if there was like 4 or 5 or 6 more storylines included. But all interweaving in such a beautiful way. So I know a lot of people who are watching this now are
Well,
probably already
maybe
aware.
someday I could turn it into a TV series.
Maybe, you know.
Okay, okay.
Absolutely. So I'm a big
Yeah.
fan. I mean, just in case someone didn't happen to know what happened in this film, I try to refer to what happens in it as the event. And in a way,
Okay.
what I found compelling, maybe from a voyeuristic sense, that the event impacts just about everybody, and people perceive it as a reckoning of sorts. And especially the characters that we just talked about really have to come to terms with some deep issue within themselves. But did you want to create a common theme across all of them? Was there something that really connected all four of them, and not just in their interpretations of love, but was there some sort of thematic, we'll call it a ghost or a obstacle for all of them to find what they're looking for?
Well, this will be a long answer
Sure.
and it will take some time. 其实我在这个电影里想探讨的，其实并不是爱情这个主题，我是在借爱情这个主题探讨人如何面对真相、面对真实自己这个主题。我觉得魏可以一段一段的翻译吧，我每次说完一点。
Okay. Well, I have to be honest. I don't think love is the theme that I really want to focus on for this film. What I really want to talk about in this film through the subject of love is how man can face truth and face a real self. That's my subject. That's my theme.
在这个电影里边，其实角色的对话里边，其中有一个疯狂的科学家，他曾经提到说，爱情是个量子力学。量子力学其实这门现代科学告诉我们的是，事情的真相在观察者观察的那一瞬间才是被决定下来的。也就是说，这其实意味着没有绝对的真相，不同的观察者，世界给你展现的就是永远是你内心的投影，其实是一个不同的世界。你能不能面对真相，其实就是你能不能面对你自己。
There is a saying in the science field that love in nature is a state of quantum physics and or quantum mechanics. And when I dive into quantum physics, it says something about the truth of all matters can only be decided when an observer is on site to look at it. And that means there is no absolute truth. When you are facing different observers, the world will probably display differently and reflect your inner heart, your inner thoughts. And whether you can really face that truth, it really depends on whether you can really face yourself.
我认为其实面对真实的自己是很难的一件事儿。我们在生活中其实会因为各种各样的原因选择自我欺骗，逃避真实的自我。影片中这4组人物其实都是之前在逃避自我的，然后经过在这个光照这个事件之后，然后经过了痛苦的煎熬之后，其实才发现了真实的自己，然后敢于面对真实的自己。
I found it a really difficult thing to really face yourself and be yourself, especially in life. We have all sorts of reasons to try to deceive ourselves and try to shy away from who we truly are. And all the 4 main characters in my story are going through this process. After the light, after a painful ordeal, and it's their journey to discover who they truly are.
比如
I mean,
离婚的这个女性角色。Okay, what?
No.
Well,
Did you have?
well, I still not finished yet.
Please.
OK，比如离婚的这个妻子这个角色，其实她的丈夫不断的出轨欺骗她。其实从政治正确的角度， 从理性的角度，他都不应该再爱这个渣男了。然后其实所有的爱情剧都会，现在的爱情剧都会说，在女主角发现男人这个背叛的不光彩这一面后，会意识到自己已经不爱他了。所以李楠以为自己不爱他了，选择主动离开丈夫。但是其实，在真实生活中，最真实的我们每一个人情感是不能以理智和道德为转移的。所以片中的这个女人会一步步发现自己其实还是爱对方的，还是这个爱情本身是纯粹的，爱情本身是没有错误。
For example, this character Linan, the woman who divorced her husband in the story, because her husband was, constantly cheating on her. From a perspective of being politically correct nowadays, and from a rational sense, she should just cut off the link to the man, right? She would just walk away, like in all sorts of dramas about love. Once you realize the husband is cheating on you, there's no reason that you should stick on. And she thought so too. She thought that she is beyond love, and she proactively chose to leave her husband. But in the end, the true self, her true self, cannot be really changed based on the rational thinking, because once she discovered the truth and once she walked through the journey, she would find that her true self is focusing on just a pure love, and that's not something that you can change because of your will or because of your rational thinking, because love is a pure thing.
Okay, that's the answer.
Wow. Very profound. Especially, I mean, I'm a sucker for any sort of integration of these sort of romantic concepts with quantum physics and quantum mechanics as well. At the same time, it did help rationalize a lot of the curiosities I had. For my next question, there's this moment in the story, and again, I'm really trying not to spoil too much because I just, this is my style, but where the scientific community appears and tries to explain to people that whatever they are reading into this situation, this phenomena, it's actually, there's no basis in it, right? And yet the story still continued as if people were still interpreting it in the same way that they were interpreting it in the beginning, related to not just love but also morality as well. Why, in your view, were people still so connected to the, let's call it the myth or the theory, even though the scientific community says there's no basis behind it?
我觉得这个其实很有趣，这现实就是这样，因为尤其在今年的疫情中，我觉得这个情况特别的明显。我相信美国的观众也会有体会，因为即便 CDC 要求大家戴口罩，依然会有很多人不相信科学家说的话。尤其是在现在互联网发达的时代，每个人获取的信息都是五花八门的，有时候还是自相矛盾的。其实人们越来越不信任某一个单一的权威了。
I found this particularly interesting, especially this year, because we're living in a year of pandemic, and there has been all sorts of stories involving how people react to news or react to authority, what the authorities say. For example, I'm sure the audience in the U.S. have experienced stories about people not believing what
No
the
comment.
CDC has to say, stories like that. So I guess this is really, we live in a time when, the information is floating around us, and it's a hard thing for people to choose.
当然，在这个电影里边儿，其实官方的说法也未必是真实的。就是我在这个方面，其实虽然我是导演，但是我持一个中立的立场，我不确认片子里边官方说的这个话到底是不是真的，也有可能是为了让社会恢复平静而采用的一种宣传的说法。其实站在普通人，任何一个普通人的角度，其实这种生活中对各种信息的不确定性，我觉得才是最真实的一个状况。
And to be honest, I'm not saying that all information from the authorities are real. I'm just saying that I think people have a choice, that people have to be able to try to determine what they want to believe. For example, in my story, you know, as a director, I want to be neutral. And in my story, I'm not even sure whether, you know, the authorities are telling the public truth, or whether they're just saying a story to the public to maintain stability of the society. So I think if you are a commoner living in a society, the uncertainty of information is the real state of life.
That's
Yes,
very,
that's
very,
the answer.
yeah, very profound and also kind of a bit terrifying, I would say. I mean, much of this film, it almost is like a horror film in its own way because it's has such a, you know, that the uncertainty principles that occupy it are, you know, very unnerving, I would say, but in a good way. So, you know, one thing, and maybe this is some just because I live in this sort of state as well of the way that technology kept appearing a lot throughout the film and how people process their environments using technology. Be it to, there's always like a lot of recording of phenomena as it's happening. There were reports of doctoring images or doctoring content. There was also, when certain events came about, the preservation of content on people's phones became relevant, or just the communication with one another. All of it is significant in its own way. So I would love to know what your view of technology is within this film, and when it comes to the negotiation of, I guess, the issues and the phenomenon that they're going through, and how it relates to the themes of it as well.
其实我只是在如实的展现当今中国人的一种生活，尤其移动互联网的发达，让手机啊各种 app 已经成为大多数中国人日常生活中真的无法分离的一部分了。有趣的是，就是这种科技的发达，其实并没有真正的把人与人连接在一起。然后现在各种 app 的这种高级的算法，其实形成了一个信息茧房，然后把人们更加孤立在自己的这个信息视野里边了，有更多的偏见。我觉得这也是现在这个世界越来越分裂、冲突越来越多的原因。其实倒没有想表达那么多，但是这就是现在的一个状况。
Well, to be honest, I was just really filming the real life in China nowadays, because you know, the mobile phones and all sorts of apps, that's people's daily life in China. That's very normal and very ordinary. I wasn't really trying to, you know, make a sci-fi side of filming on this technology. But you know, the interesting thing for me is that these technology doesn't really bring people together, because you know, all these algorithm behind these tech giants are, you know, in my view, building information cocoons, as I call it, to isolate people in their own circles. So technology actually makes people more prejudiced. That's why I think the world nowadays is turning more and more divided and more and more, always more and more conflicts.
Gosh, I did not mean for this interview to get more and more sad and but I swear, I mean, it does not at all reflect the overall my own impression of the film, certainly. So we're near to the end of the interview, and I do have one more question. And I know you already said earlier that despite what's in the film, this is not what the central theme of the film is. I just have, out of just sheer curiosity, since you did ask many people within the film, what is your understanding of love, and what do you think love is?
我其实听过一个说法，我不知道西方有没有这个说法，就是说一个好的爱情能让人变成更好的自己，但是我是不同意这个说法的。我认为一个好的爱情其实能让人发现更真实的自己。就真正的爱情应该是非常单纯而没有伪装的，一个好的爱情应该能让自己和对方都看到，并且接受这种完全真实的、没有伪装的对方。 哪怕这个自己在世俗的眼光中，其实并不是道德完善的，并不是，甚至并不是好人。但我觉得爱情其实应该就是让我们，就是一个到底我们如何看待自己的，其实跟刚才那个问题的回答有点像。
There's a saying that the the good love is something that turns one into a better self. I don't know whether people in the West share the saying, but I don't. I personally don't agree with this saying. I think uh, good love turn one into a truer self, um, because in my view, the true love is something very pure and without disguise. In a true loving relationship, people should be able to put down all the disguises and be who you truly are to each other, and then love each other and accept each other as who the other party truly is. So even if oneself is not a perfect man or woman, or even sometimes not a good person, but when you're in love, that's how we truly become oneself.
就像我其实很喜欢的那部电影，就《天生杀人狂》这部电影，其实在片子中，两个相爱的人，他们甚至都是罪犯，但是即便这样，他们之间的那个爱情还是很打动我的。我觉得那个其实是一个很好的爱情。
One movie that I love very much is Natural Born Killers by Oliver Stone. And, that movie portrays a couple that are definitely not good people, right? They're killers, they're serial killers, but then they do love each other. And they love each other for this crazy mad state of being. And if we were only talking about the love part of that story, that's something beautiful to me. That's something still, very original and very beautiful, that can touch people.
Yeah, well, that's my point of view of love.
I was not expecting that last part. And yet I was trying to like how do I come to terms with what is actually I think a very mature perspective, to be with all due respect, when it comes to um like hoping that when people when they fall in love, that they fall in love not because of anything but beyond acceptance and partnership, if you will. And I mean, in sort of a twisted, warped way, I think Natural Born Killers is very representative of that, and certainly very appealing to a lot of people because of that relationship. But that's all I want to say on that film, just for now, just not to be too distracting.
Okay, I'm not supporting that, but that's
but I do want to say this has been, I mean, your film, I want to say, is very rich. It's a wonderful drama. Although I don't want to even describe it just as one genre or another, because I found it humorous and many times, and really thought-provoking, especially. And
thank you.
But beyond that, though, this Q&A has also been wonderful, and I was very pleasantly surprised, admittedly nervous, having to work through a translator, but I feel like much of your film transcends a lot of those things and borders, and certainly can connect with people, and for sure belongs in this film festival. So Dong Yen, thank you so much for speaking with me today. Also, Robert Wei, thank you so much for your wonderful translations as well. And lastly, want to thank everybody here for watching this Q&A and this discussion, and a special mahalo to all of our HIFF sponsors, our board of directors, and the HIFF Ohana members. My name is Lee Ngol. Thank you so much for watching, and mahalo. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Lee.